we are glad to have my brother, a friend. We've known each other for, I guess it's about 20 years now. You
Yeah.
know, Mr. Rodrigue Momo. I call him Rod Momo. He's an incredible friend, a brother to me. But more importantly, for today, he has a lot of insight from his experience with business as an entrepreneur. I just took a few notes, and he is CEO of Chrome Connections, is founder of Educ Forum, and that is the one that I'm hoping that he will draw a lot of inspiration today from, to sort of give us some insights based on his experience. So and I'll, I'll, I'll say, just to establish a background uh, before I even invite Rodrigue to come in. You know, I've seen him, we've seen each other grow. We grew up together. I've seen him grow from, we were in Europe together, but I've seen him because of the grace of God upon his life and his ferventness and tenacity, interact and do business with diplomats at multiple levels. The details, I'll leave that for him to throw a little bit more on the details and his interactions, to kind of set the platform that gives a background and gives us a perspective um, on his contribution, so we know where he's coming from, so to say. So thank you again very much. Today it is, we are talking about entrepreneurship, kingdom wealth building, entrepreneurship, and how to start up a business, how to grow a business, what is needed in order to really scale a business to profitability. So Rodrigue, I would like you to say a word before I start prompting you with hopefully questions that we can discuss and chat about. Say a word maybe about yourself, or just greet folks here.
Thank you very much, my brother, friend. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm very happy to participate with you, my brother. It's been so many years that we moved together from Cameroon, Europe, and here we are in Canada. And then you saw all the steps that I took. And I'm here today as an entrepreneur to share my personal experience. Actually, just to present myself, throw some light again, I operate most importantly in the level of education, building partnerships between Cameroon or Sub-Saharan Africa and Canada for now. But I have some historical background in the field of education. And most importantly, I have been recognized at the highest level in Canada by the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who received me in the month of February amongst most successful entrepreneurs that are doing business with Africa. So I had a distinction, which is very important to me. What I'm doing, I think, in the course of the discussions, I'll be able to bring you, throw lights on what I'm doing. But one thing that is very important to know before we move forward is that as a Christian, we need to be rooted and grounded in the Word of God, because the Word of God says in Matthew 6:33 that seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all those things will be given unto you, but not the opposite. So, which means in everything we should keep that in mind. It should be like at the foundation of the business, because business goes with money, and money has so many things go turn around money, temptations, and then the devil is around that. So we need to be grounded in the Word of God through all the steps that we are taking, through all the successes, failures. We need always to put God first, to have to be inspired by Him, and then be directed by the Holy Spirit. I think for now, just leave it as that, and then when we will be flowing, I'll be coming up with many other points.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for those who are joining. It's a practice to go through the list of folks who join and just appreciate them. But again, because of a glitch in the computer today, we started a few minutes late, and there's a lot that we have to handle. in the next couple of minutes. So we may not come back to appreciate you, but no, it's a delight to have you today here. Now, thank you very much for throwing a little bit more light, Rodrigue. I should say you are multifaceted. When I knew you, you were a communicator. You were in the field of communication, radio, and all that. So it's really a delight to have you here as you pull from your background. Maybe I should, before even moving on, apart from the Prime Minister recognizing your extent of work, your success, by inviting you amongst a few entrepreneurs who deal with Africa, I remember you also got some recognition because of some work you did in Texas. I'm just throwing this in because, just to highlight the fact that you're really, I've seen the hand of God upon your life and I've seen your handwork. Now, the first question I want to ask, and this may be relevant for all of us, especially those who are still considering to venture into entrepreneurship, is how did you conceptualize, what were the reasons that prompted you to decide to get into education? And maybe you give us a little bit more about what you really do with education as you answer this question, what it entails.
What made me to get into education? The first thing is, I will first of all start by what made me to feel that I can go into entrepreneurship. So there are two basic reasons that motivated me. The first one was family. I came up from a very, like most of us, from a very modest family in Africa, in Cameroon. And then in the family, there are a lot of needs. And in my surrounding, a lot of needs. And in my relations, there were also a lot of needs. So I found that there were so many problems, and then that I would like to solve, provide solutions. So, but I didn't have the means to do that. And then there were also social issues in my surroundings. So I thought maybe I wanted to be able to contribute to reduce poverty and enhance sustainable development within my surroundings. But to do all that, I needed to have the means, the financial capacity or potential to be able to do that. With a single job or whatever job I would do, the amounts of money that I would have would not enable me to be able to provide solutions to those problems. So that's why I thought that, okay, well, to be able to have more monies, I need to create a company, come up with projects that will be able to take me into a level of profitability and then have some cash to be able to resolve those problems. That's how I decided to, okay, let me see what I can do in the level of entrepreneurship. So the first thing that I did as a Christian, I started to pray. So I went to my knees, prayed, fasted, and then asked the Lord to give me an idea, because everything starts with an idea. If there's not an idea, nothing is going to happen. So let him give me the right idea that would enable me to be able to achieve my goals, the targets that I want to reach. So the Lord dropped into me the domain of education. And then I also had to remember some of my historical backgrounds. Like, for instance, in the early 2000s, while I was still in Cameroon, I think it was 2001, where I was so young, but I successfully connected some institutions in Cameroon and in the US, basically Tennessee Technical University, because at that time I was working, I could say, kind of part-time at Alliance Franco-Camerounaise in Boya. So I had that possibility of receiving my mails there, and I did some connections with Tennessee Technical University that even offered to provide some grants to some students in Cameroon. I met an agency, an education agency, and we did a partnership, and I had to give him that opportunity to continue and develop that partnership between that university and then Cameroon. So, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight, sorry, as we're speaking, I'll be highlighting some points so we don't miss them. There are two things that really come to mind that you've talked about. One is, and I actually wrote it down, you identified a need, so you had a desire to be an entrepreneur, to overcome financial challenges, obviously personal financial challenges, but also that also extend into the family. But you identified a need, and that underscores a very important, in my opinion, aspect as we develop the mindset of becoming an entrepreneur. We have to identify a need to solve the need with the potential for financial gain at the end.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm speaking. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
first thing that I picked up from the discussion or your intro there. The second point is the fact that you did not start off apart from your Christianity. So like you rightly quoted the scriptures, seek ye first the kingdom of God. So you actually sought the face of God about the idea that he was laying in your heart, and you prayed and fasted for it to be established, for doors to be opened. That's really, really interesting. Now, yeah, sorry, I will get into the education and your links to it, because you've not talked a little. I would like for you to talk a little bit about maybe, because I know you're involved in many countries, so the number of countries you're involved in, the kind of work, the challenges you face. That's how or the next aspect I'd like us to discuss. But just so before I even let you go in, just to throw some skeleton or meat to the bone. There's not what Rodrigue is involved with is what they call social entrepreneurship, but there's different kinds of entrepreneurship, so that if you're listening to him, you will not be stuck. You shouldn't feel like, oh, well, my own idea is not related to this. So we are going to hopefully, from the lessons we learn from Rodrigue's experience, we'll be able to learn things, facets or different aspects that can be applied into different domains of entrepreneurship. So Rodrigue, please move on. Talk about, if you may, your experience of moving into, again, you talked about how you developed as an entrepreneur, getting the idea, forming it, but how did you delve into education? The practical things, did you say, okay, from your experience in Boya, Alliance Franco-Cameronaise, how did you get to now you're involved with many countries in Africa?
Okay, the way I got in, let me come back into the needs. So yes. I try to identify some needs in my target, which I found as the sub-Saharan Africa. So Cameroon, Senegal, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Gabon, the Central African Republic, all those countries. So I looked and I found that there is a need, because in all of those countries, and even in the whole of Africa, thousands of students are coming into Canada, we are going abroad for studies. So only for Cameroon, statistics shows that 22,000 Cameroonians, from my findings, from my research, are moving, at least 22,000 Cameroonians are moving every year from Cameroon to most countries in the world. So being a Canadian citizen, I said, okay, the problem that I want to solve now is to provide a solution so that those Cameroonians that are moving abroad should be able to find their solution in a level of education in Canada and not elsewhere. That is the first thing. And then I had to say, okay, how do they do that? Let me go and then seek the backing of the Canadian government so that they'll be able to back my project. So we went into connections, interviews, meetings, and finally they accepted to back the project. Because the Canadian, apart from my own structure internationally, the government of Canada has one structure that is called Edu Canada that promotes Canadian expertise and education and programs abroad. But there is no private institution that does that. So I came in as the only private, that's what they told me, only private institution. So that is one thing. The other need is that so many Africans who do not have the possibility of having a visa would want to have quality education back home. And so there is a need to provide a solution to those who can't afford the possibility or the capacity of having a visa or a study permit. So a lot of solutions are there. So I came in now with the idea of, okay, let me take partners here, Canadian partners here in the level of education, take them back to Africa so that we'll be able to make partnerships that will be mutually beneficial for Cameroon, Senegal, for instance, which we built, in which we operated at that time, or even still now, and then Canada. So there are a lot of institutions in Canada, universities in Cameroon, Canada, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, that have been in partnerships with Canadian institutions, and that was facilitated by us. So in those partnerships, some of the partnerships will entitle some students to be able to take part of their courses in Cameroon or in those countries and then complete it here, or even just complete the whole of their studies back there and then have a kind of recognition, internal recognition of the Canadian institutions. And then there's also a program that will enable some teachers or lecturers from Canada to go back into those institutions in those countries and train lecturers or teachers in professional schools that will be able to resolve the problem of quality education. We all know the level of recognition that Canadian education has internationally. So in Cameroon, for instance, it is well seen. So that is the way I made. So I've been having the backing and the collaboration, the support of the Canadian institution to be able to do that, and some private based organizations, and then even banks in Canada who accompany me, who always go with me in those projects, because actually it's not for free. It's because at the other end they also have their own benefits. So we should be, that's why that is what the business is. You should always look at, yes, what you gain, but what does the other person gain? So it has to be, mutually beneficial.
Yes. So there are two things that are, again, there are 2 points that I would like to highlight as you're discussing. The first one I realized is you did your research. So you didn't just pray, but you did your research. You made sure you understood. First of all, you are not the only, you are not the first person to establish, so to say, such a network that, should I put it, you are the first private, but there were other institutions, bodies that were involved. So you by being private or coming in as a private entity, I guess, and this is my guess, you did your research and you realized that there were some aspects that you'll be able to present that would distinguish you from other people who were in the market.
And that is where competitive advantage comes in marketing strategy, because when discussing even with the Canadian government, I had to show them what is the competitive advantage. That is, what would enable a student not to go to the Canadian or the Do Canada Fair, but instead coming to my, because we also organize fairs internationally, but coming to my fair or be interested in our services. What do we bring in that they don't have, that they don't offer? So I came in with competitive advantages that will become like a complement or an added value to what they are already doing.
That's very interesting. So please, folks, as we're all in, I think it's very important to note down these points. If you have a business idea, it could be as simple as, we used to throw, my wife and I discuss, if we are fond of discussing some ideas that come up our mind, and I'll give an example. Hopefully it's not copied, and but the point we've talked about, having beignet, beignet flour that is produced and that can be sold ready-made at stores, dry. So someone will just add a certain amount of water and whatever it is, sugar, and just fry it and have their beignet. So why I bring this in is that we can, you see, you need to do our research. We need to do our research to see what other alternatives there are. What is required if I'm getting into the food industry? Rodrigue is in education and he operates internationally. I mean, this guy, as he's talking to us, he's as simple as he is, but if he arrives in Cameroon, he calls the High Commission, Canadian High Commissioner, even if it's midnight, they pick up the call. That's how connected he is. So, but I don't want to go to that extent. What I want to highlight here is that the importance of doing our research and understanding the competitive advantage of the product or the services that we are offering if we really have to be entrepreneurs and succeed as entrepreneurs. Another point that I noted here is that you talked about is the value you add to people. So it's not just bringing something exciting, but something that adds value to others, which I think is worth taking note of. Now, Rodrigue, if you may, could you, of course, this is an idea you had. How did you, you've traveled, I know we talk a lot, you've traveled abroad a lot. How did you, first of all, tell us about how did you source for funds, getting money to run around, to do all what you've been doing this far for this many years?
That is a very good point. I mean, in regards to sorry, just give me a moment. I'm just trying to. My name shows as Jason and Emmanuel. Those are my kids. Those are my children. In my Zoom. Okay, to raise funds or to put together funds, we need to come up with a very good business plan. That is the basics of a business. You can have an idea, a very good idea, but if you don't have a business plan, then you are moving into, I will not say failure, but you're moving into the cloud. Just to put an example, we went into Cameroon in two years ago, Cameroon, Senegal, 2 years ago, to train a network of 2.5 million women entrepreneurs, including buy and sell-ums and everything. And most of them knew they were doing good into business. But we had a collaboration of United Nations, UN Women, United Nations Program for Women. So when we finished the training, I mean, all those women realized that they thought they were doing business, but they are not doing business because they are losing a lot of money. Because we showed them that practically, when you come up with a business plan, it gives you places where you put on your strategies with a communication plan, a marketing plan, a financial plan, the idea that is well described, and then, but if the communication plan, marketing plan, and then the financial plan, sorry, not the financial plan, the idea are not well described and well written down or organized, you can't come up with a good financial plan. You need to have a financial plan and then look on how you come up with, you find the financial resources to be able to carry on your project or your business that you want to carry on. So that is what I did personally. But trust me, having the finances is not the easiest thing. For my own personal experience, I had to go in with personal funds. I chipped in personal funds, and I thank my wife. I mean, for those of us that are married, it's a challenge because you should have your wife with you, because if not, you guys know what's going to happen. You will not be able to, So, I mean, I thank my wife because she's been she supported me into that, because moving in those amounts of monies, I mean, even if it comes out from my own personal bank account, it is still family monies. It has an impact into the family financial plan. So it was personal funding. Some other people will go and look for loans from the bank because they have that possibility. And it's not only a matter of possibility. You can have the possibility, but you decide, no, okay, to start, I can start with some savings that I did. And that was my own personal case. But business is tricky, because when you come up with a business plan, you can, describe or say in maybe in about 3 years, you attain the break even. That is the level of profitability in which, from that you start making profit. But at times, and most often, when you get to that level, you are not making profits. And it started becoming frustrating. So what do? Do you move forward? Do you just leave everything down? So that is where the character of a businessman comes in, because you need to be very endurant. You need to have a lot of courage to be able, because you need to be able to control with that risk. And risk is a key word, because a businessman, an entrepreneur, is somebody that is ready to take high risk. Some are very defensive, but some are very offensive. At my own end, I wasn't defensive. I was very offensive, and I keep being offensive. Because I think that's my own personal plan. When I multiply opportunities, that's how I go. So coming back to the question, yes, my finances were personal, and when I went so far, I will not say no. It was at the third year, it was successful on my own side. No. I remember I opened some offices and I had to close some of them because at the point when you reach at some point, you have to evaluate. Okay, if you're not, you were planning in your business plan, you were planning to make, let me say, just for instance, planning to make 10K, for instance, each month at the third year. And then at the third year, you're not making a profit of that 10K, or you are instead be losing. And you have to question yourself, what is happening? You have to do a certain evaluation, look at the thing, readjust plans, and then to be able to move on.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Absolutely, you are communicating. Absolutely. There's a point I would like to strike here, which you said at the beginning. Every business starts with an idea. That's the statement you made, and it's quotable. Every business starts with an idea. There are many of us who have ideas. We discard them. We think this is too funny. If you don't, the next point, so it's important to watch out for your ideas, because even God, in order to increase you, will give you an idea. You should look at the life of Jacob when he dealt with sheep with his father-in-law. Even all of them, they had ideas. It comes as an idea. The biggest business comes as an idea. The idea may be obviously, usually, or it should be tailored to meet a need. That's what Rodrigue has been talking about. The other point that he brought, that you highlighted, is writing it down. This is clearly in the Bible. Write the vision down, make it plain. We should learn to write it down. If you don't write it, you see, there's a secret about the mind. The mind is not expert at keeping ideas. The mind is an expert at generating ideas. That's why we need to write it down. Now, if we don't know that, we'll be trying to store ideas in our heads, then sooner or later we realize we've forgotten. So that's why it's important to highlight again the fact you made. Write it down. Once you write it down, you can come back to it, develop it. And as you mentioned, you talked about having a plan, a business plan, which incorporates, which is an entire step-by-step process, including the finances, where finances will be generated. I just thought to highlight these points.
There's also one thing that, before you continue, just one thing that is very important. Yes. It's very important in the beginning to evaluate your skills, your personal skills, and to be honest with yourself. The evaluation of your skills will enable, for me, in my own case, enabled me to see my strengths and my weaknesses that are points that I would want to improve on. So when that evaluation is done, honestly, you identify those key points, you know what to do to be able to improve your certain weaknesses that you have. It might be maybe in financial management, it might be marketing, it might be communication. And also, you will not want to do everything by your own. It depends also on the resources that you have. So you want to, divide the task that you have. Marketing is done by experts in marketing. You don't want to, having the financial plan of your business plan. I remember my first business plan, the financial plan was done. I have a friend of mine who is a lecturer in University in Quebec, University in Quebec in Ottawa. He's a lecturer in finance. So, he's the one that helped me to build that financial plan, accurately. So seeking the help of professionals in various domains is very important.
Wow, that's super important. So you throw in a very important point there. Identify your strengths and our weaknesses. You see, the issue is not, there's no problem in having weaknesses. It is about how we manage them. And what you gave that is beautifully crafted. How to manage them. You can look for people whom you would entrust them with aspects of the business that you are not good at, and that is beautiful. Maybe I should dive on to the next one. It feels to me already like we need to have this talk again. You talked about marketing, because you can have a brilliant idea, but if you don't know how to market it, if you don't know how to let people to announce it, even Jesus, the Father had to come and say, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. That is absolute heavenly marketing, kingdom marketing. So how did you market it to the point where it is now? I mean,
Okay, a
yeah.
good to be able to market it, the first thing is, first of all, to identify my market and my target, which means my target, my audience. To whom do I want to sell my services?
Yes.
So in my case, I want to sell my services to students of secondary, higher education, and even to authorities in those countries, the universities and in the government and private, and so that is the target. Okay, how do I provide them with that information, with that marketing information, so that they'll be able to be aware and be able to buy and be able to buy my services? So by doing publicity, promotion. So I had to come up with communication materials, marketing materials. I remember in those days, I came up with, from many institutions here in Canada, provided me with t-shirts, flyers, and then logos of their institutions. I also came up with an ads, Facebook ads, videos, which I went with, and then we did publicity over the social media, Facebook, Twitter, radio, TV, and then did presentations with alongside with the Canadian High Commission for the case of Cameroon, Canadian High Commission in Cameroon. Senegal, went to the Canadian embassy in my team went there with the members of the Canadian embassy in Senegal. So when you doing marketing with the authorities in Cameroon, for instance, my market in Cameroon, it's a very tricky market. For instance, I'm taking the case of Cameroon because I'm Cameroonian, so and it's the market I know best, though I operate in many countries. It's tricky because in the field of education, you have a lot of agencies in Cameroon that sell services to Canada, but they are immigration services, which is very different from what I do. So to be able to convince people that what we're doing is something very serious, that is above the field of immigration, that we're not immigration consultants, but we are doing something in the field of education, I had to go with my institutional support, which was the Canadian High Commission. Did press conferences in the offices of the Canadian High Commission with the ambassador himself presiding the conferences. So all my conferences in Cameroon have been always launched by the Canadian High Commission, the Canadian ambassador. That shows credibility because I know my market. I know that my market needs to see that kind of information to be able to be convinced. So, which means that you will not sell, for instance, a mango to somebody that wants to drink water, just to say, or you will not give a book to somebody that is thirsty. I mean, you have to identify your target, identify your audience, and give your audience what to do. So, publicity and promotions, production of flyers and publicity materials, and then doing the marketing in the field. Identify first of all the market and the target the audience, so that to give them what they need, because as we said in the beginning, we first of all identify the needs.
So it's just occurring to me that you see there's a lot that you're summarizing. There's a lot. You understand your terrain, the politics of your terrain. You understand the media of your terrain. I know for sure, because again, we talk all the time. I've seen the work you've done that on national TV in Cameroon. You've been there a few times. Now, in just wrapping up out, one thing you've already talked about this that I would like to highlight is, not highlight, maybe ask you to throw in a little bit more light, is the aspect of tenacity, of having grit, when it feels like look, this thing is not working. Somebody, a very close friend, a spouse, hypothetically, I know your wife is very supportive of it, but when everything feels like it's crumbling, how have you been able to just keep the grit and continue and press on to move to the next stage of success?
By default, I always consult the Lord by default. So each and every time I make sure that it's very important, so that so that I have the confidence that I'm doing His will in what I'm doing. So when it's kind of hard like that, I pray. I even go on fasting, but I'm someone that is naturally very optimistic. You know that.
Yes.
And above that optimism, there is the faith that I add into it, the portion of faith. So that if I don't have all evidences that a project or a business that I want to carry on is not operating, I'll keep moving on, keep developing strategies, changing strategies. If it fails on one point, I would look for means to change strategy. For instance, now as I'm speaking, there is a project that we have in one of my business that's been going on since 2017. But that it's a very huge project. But that project has been turning on. And most of my partners, both Canadians, white Canadians, and then black Canadians like us, have like been discouraged about the future of that project. Not because they don't, it's not motivating us, but I personally, until today, I still have that faith that we can do something. And believe me, I've opened some doors of recent, and I'm sure by the grace of God, this it will take us to a greater end. So I keep on, praying and then yes. Looking for evidences that nothing is going to happen. And just to conclude on something, just to conclude, I was going on a mission, I think it was in 2016, with one of my partners here. We're going into Cameroon. One of some Canadian partners, proprietor of a college here in Montreal. Before going, I consulted my leader in church and told him I wanted us to pray. I remember you guys, I called you and we prayed when I was at the airport. And he also prayed for me. And when he was praying, he told me, okay, I pray that the Lord connects you with that partner which you are taking to Cameroon, so that when you are in Cameroon, let new business idea comes into place, into development. And behold, I went through that man. That's what happened. When he arrived in Cameroon, he just told me, this place is it's a very nice place. I think we have to develop things here. I think we have to. Is there a way that we can build social apartments here and put? I just started praying from him, so he wouldn't let. He started proposing so many things to me. And when we came back, I thought it was just like he was in the mood, in the excitement. But when we came back to Montreal, he continued, and we are working on so many projects that are by the grace of God supposed to develop there soon.
Wow. Thank you very much for that. And you end it on a very, very good note. The fact that you depend on God above all else. And I know a little bit about this. Folks, when he's talking, it's hundreds of millions, multi-$100 million projects. So I know about it. And so you really ended it well. The fact that God has to just be the center and guiding us, in leading us, in directing us in every way. And that helps in times of adversity, when you have an idea and it feels like it hits you're hitting rock bottom. Because I think that's an integral part of entrepreneurship, or the entrepreneurial experience, that things will, for sure, at some point, things will go south. And it needs grit, it needs endurance, it needs someone who will be steadfast, not giving up. Now, before we close up, I would like to open the floor for comments, questions. Rodrigue is still here. Please ask if you may.